What's up, guys? Travis here. Today I just wanted to talk about a game that I've been addicted to that I think is really unique called Cultist Simulator Bring the Dawn. This game is a card game, but it's not exactly the kind of card game you think of. It's not like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or anything like that. Instead, this game gives you a bunch of cards that you can see kind of down there in the middle of the table, and they all have different effects, different stories attached to them, and you have to put them up in the tiles that are up there on the top, and eventually they each cause different effects to happen. The goal of the game is to start your own cult. You start out as kind of a nobody, they call that aspirant, and you have a menial job, and you're doing menial work. It doesn't pay well, it doesn't satisfy you, and eventually you start to kind of expand your horizons into the unknown or into the occult of the world, and it is very interesting because it paints your own story based on the cards that you play. So one of the first things that the game greets you with is a little warning that says you probably won't get this the first time. You just got to kind of keep trying and putting cards in there, and that is very true. As you can see, when I click on that blank space there, it highlights all the cards that can go into that spot, but that doesn't mean necessarily it's going to work or create any kind of effect. So it really comes down to reading the description of each card and kind of seeing what'll jive with it as you go. Another thing that is really well done in this game is the music and the sound design. It's super atmospheric, so just kind of listen to this a little bit. And the game's full of little sound effects like clinking clocks and grinding gears. It just kind of add to this whole, I would say, Lovecraftian aesthetic that they have going on. So obviously there's not a ton of artwork because it's all these little cards, but all like the people that are drawn on there are drawn in a very distinct style. And as you can see there, once you place a certain card, you get this kind of like ink blot drawing almost behind the tile that you play it on. And so it does kind of add to this overall aesthetic of the game that I find very interesting and really good, especially since it is just a simple card game. They still are able to add a lot of flavor in with these little touches of art that really are really well done. So as you play these cards into each of these little tiles, you get these countdowns that go around. You can see them as the rings there with the timers. That's how long it takes to execute something. So it turns into a time management game and a resource management game. Some of the tiles will eat up your money, or some of the tiles will eat up your happiness and make you feel dreadful or worried about what's coming. You can also recruit people into your cult. So like you have people who you can send out on missions or send out to steal stuff or do anything like that. Honestly, the possibilities in this game seem pretty endless. I've only played to the conclusion of a handful of games just because I'm having a hard time figuring out what to do next on a lot of these, but every time has been completely different, and I end up getting into these situations where like I wouldn't expect to be in anything like that. So it's super interesting that they're able to turn something with just cards into such a fascinating game to me. And it's also amazing that the stories that it tells is so well done. Like the little flavor text and all the cards are so well written that they really kind of throw you right into this thing and immerse you into the tale that you're telling yourself, basically. But they don't animate any of it, or there's no voice acting, so it's all just it's basically like reading a really good choose your own adventure book, but with a little bit of time management added in there. So it's kind of an atypical game. You know, you don't really play it as you do experience it, I would say, but it's still something that I think people that enjoy a good story should experience, especially if you really enjoy that kind of occult feeling or Lovecraftian setting. I think this would probably be the perfect game to play. On the bottom right corner, that thing that looks like the sad theater mask, it's eating up all my contentment with life and making me depressed. So it's kind of like a race against the clock, because if that timer runs out and you don't have any contentment to feed it, it'll turn into dread. And if the timer runs on a stack of dread 3 times, you actually go insane and lose the game. You also have to kind of put on a show. So here I am going to work at a normal job, and you also have to try to not be too suspicious, or else the cops will get on you, or people will get sent after you to look and arrest you or build a case against you. So there's like so many moving parts that at first it's like there's only 3 tiles that you have to balance, so it starts out pretty slow, but then eventually you get like 10 tiles that you have to manage all these cards for. So it shouldn't be stressful, but for some reason it's really, really stressful to try and get all these cards put in the right spot. And so that is all I'm going to have today. Here's me dying of a disease. But that's all I have today. I just wanted to give this game a quick shout out because I think it's really interesting. I think anyone that enjoys good stories should really give it a try. And that's all I have for you today. You guys take it easy.